Hello, welcome to Movies I Love with yours truly, Nomfanelo Malloy. So, with this one, I will be discussing Fast and Furious 4 to 6, continuing my conversation from Fast and Furious, which previously I did 1, 2, 3. So Fast and Furious 4, which was titled Fast and Furious, which came out in 2009. Fast 5 came out in 2011. And Fast and Furious 6 or Furious 6 came out in 2013. All three of these movies are directed by Justin Lin and stars Vin Diesel, Paul Walker, and Michelle Rodriguez. So, before I get into this discussion, I do have a note. This irks me. So, when we see movies that get rebooted that are still within the same canon as the previous movies, there's this tendency where they'll tend to use the same title as the first movie. And this movie with four decides to not quite, but still use the same name as the first movie, which is annoying. Because honestly, if you're going to reboot the series, but still keep it in the same universe, come up with a different title to avoid confusion. Other movies have done this. Ghostbusters, terrible. Halloween, terrible. Scream, terrible. Now, with Star Trek, technically is set in its own thing, but again, they should have came up with a different name for that one. But honestly, they Hollywood, please come up with different titles for the movies if you are going to keep it within the same universe as the previous movies. If you're going to reboot it, I put that in quotes. Alrighty, back to this. So, quick thoughts. I enjoyed all three of these movies. It was now I seen all of these movies. I seen from four onwards in theaters, and I heavily enjoyed these movies, even rewatching it now. Like I enjoy it more on repeat viewings, and I love how with these movies they are action packed, and even though like it's a different tone and a direction compared to the previous movies, it's still recognizable, which I enjoy. So we still have the car racing, the beautiful women, and people just having a good time while it's not in the foreground, but it's still prominent in the series. So, why do I love these movies? So, first and foremost, we get the original cast back. So, we have back, yeah, with the fourth one, yeah, Vin Diesel, Paul Walker, Michelle Rodriguez, like from the first movie, they came back. And then we see for five, Tyrese Gibson and Ludacris from Too Fast, Too Furious are back in this movie. And also, too, we have Sung Kang as Han from Tokyo Drift. He's back in these movies from Fast and Furious 4. Also, too, what I like is that these movies have gone international because since these movies continue from the previous movies, the characters are essentially fugitives on the run, so it made sense for them to be international. So the fourth one took place in Dominican Republic, the fifth one was in Brazil, and the sixth one was in the UK and other parts of Europe. So those were just fun to see them essentially like trying to do similar things with the previous movies, but set it in different locations. Also, too, was fun to see the main characters as either fugitives or law enforcement. So, like with Brian, I find this is quite funny. So, with Brian, the in the first movie, he's a cop. The second movie, he is a criminal question mark, but still a cop. The By we get to the fourth movie, he is a cop, which I find interesting choice. And from the fifth one and the sixth one, he is a criminal, but still has his ways as a cop. So I thought that's an interesting arc for Brian, but hey, that was just fun to see. Um, Also, too, we get to see the main characters do heists. So I thought with the fourth movie, with the opening sequence when they're trying to hijack the truck, that was a nod to the first movie. But in this instance, it goes haywire. But in the first movie, they were able to get away with it. And so, with law enforcement for these movies, they have bigger roles than usual. So, obviously, in the fourth movie, we have Brian pursuing the main bad guy, Braga. And then with the fifth and sixth one, we have The Rock essentially fulfilling that role as the main law enforcement pursuing the main characters in the fifth one. And then in the sixth one, he uses their help to go after Owen Shaw. So, and speaking of The Rock, he was a great addition to the franchise because I thought he brought some needed personality to the franchise, and it always just fun to see him and like Vin Diesel go at it, particularly in the fifth one. And then in the sixth one, we see them working together. I thought it was a nice moment where, particularly with the final action sequence, where they are working together to defeat Owen Shaw's henchmen. So that was cute. I enjoyed the cameo. So with the fifth one, we see Eva Mendes back as her character from Too Fast, Too Furious. I would love to see her come back to the franchise. So fingers crossed. And then we have Statham, where he cameos in the sixth movie as Owen Shaw's brother, essentially getting revenge by blowing up Han's car and essentially going after our lead characters, which sets up for Furious 7. The action sequences, they are enjoyable to watch. I would say for me, if I had to choose amongst a bunch, I would say this the sixth one for me stood out because it was nice that particularly when we see them driving in the cars, like they actually look nice, like they're actually in the cars. While with the other movies, particularly the older movies, it looks fake, I guess, with CGI or something. But yeah, like I thought like the sixth one like did a good job with those scenes. I would say the highlights for me were the subway sequence when we see what's her face, Letty fighting Gina Carano's character there, and also too like with Han and Roman going after the henchmen in the subway. So those were fun to see. And also too, I love the direction from Justin Lin. I would say he did a phenomenal job directing the three movies. And I say for me, like these were the best of the bunch. I would say more five and six stood out for me in terms of the work he has directed for the franchise. Because the fifth one is more, you could say, like Ocean's 11 inspired, but Fast and Furious in Brazil, which is cool. And with the sixth one, they're trying to do in ways their version of Mission Impossible or James Bond. They even mentioned Mission Impossible in the sixth one. So yeah, kudos to Justin Lin. Did a great job there. So in terms of critiques I have with these movies, so I think the main one is that the way that they go about to bring back characters or try to retcon stuff gets a bit annoying. It gets they do it overdrive in the next couple of movies. So with Letty here, so in the fourth movie, she dies where she gets shot by Braga's henchman, Felix, while she's undercover. And and then when we get to the fifth movie, in the post credit scene, it's revealed that she is alive, working for Owen Shaw. And then when we get to the sixth movie, it's revealed, I guess, that Owen Shaw, I guess, he pretty much controlled everything when it comes to Braga and all that stuff, which it sounds ridiculous, but whatever. And and it seems like they showed, I guess, her death scene from four, where essentially in this version in six, where she's struggling to get out the car, and then Felix shoots the car, and then she goes flying as the car explodes, and then she gets amnesia. Okay. But I mean, I would forgive that one because at least like with the fourth movie they didn't actually show her getting shot, so at least yeah, that one you could get away with it, but the other ones not so much. So with Han, for example, we saw in the third movie he died when he was in the car when it explodes, and then they decided to bring him back in the fourth movie, which did not make sense. I get that he stood out from the third movie and wanted to bring him back. So what they did, they decided to set four, five, and six before the third movie, which I don't agree with that choice. um, but anyways, so in the sixth movie, they extend his death sequence where it was actually Statham that killed Han when he was revealed to be the driver that hit his car while he was on the run. And yeah, with that scene, I will have to touch on that in the next video. But yeah, they really doubled down on that stuff. Yeah, and also too, the humor for me was hit and miss. So I get that they're trying to go for the type of humor you would see in a lot of like the 80s and 90s action movies. At times, like, yeah, they're quite funny. Well, at times it's like, nope, does not work for me. And I find like with Roman, he becomes a clown in this movie. I mean, Tej to an extent, but it's really Roman that becomes like the Joker of the group, which was really different compared to when he was first introduced in the second movie. And I don't agree with that choice, but what can you do? And I think that's pretty much what I have to say with these movies. So the next video, I will be focusing on Furious 7. And I'll also talk about 8 and 9 as well too. So I would love to know, what did you guys think about these movies? Do you have a favorite one out of the bunch? How about any favorite scenes or moments or so forth? Let me know in the comment section. So the links for where you could watch these movies will be in the description, along with a link to my socials. And I want to say thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I will catch you on the next one.